fishing. People, when you're in the mood, let's go fishing. Well, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. Grab your hat, get your pole. Let's go fishing when you're in the mood.
Canadian Sport Fishing, brought to you in part by Ford Trucks, built Ford tough. Lucky Strike, producers of quality fishing tackle and landing nets since 1929. Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Canadian Power and Sail Squadrons, volunteers teaching safe boating.
Let's go fishing whenever you're in the mood. Let's go fishing. Baby, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. You wanna grab your hat, man, and get your pole. Let's go fishing when you're in the mood.
All right.
Aaron, you know what? Feels good when you set the hook into these Lakers.
Absolutely.
Just a dead weight, eh? Now you start catching them out here in December or earlier? Like
Yep,
when's
we
the
start
best time?
catching them about December. December 1st, it's open on the Canadian side.
Yep.
And it's open January 1st on the US side. And they're sure are a lot of fun out here.
Actually, no. Too bad you don't have your pliers. You can probably, oh, you know what? That jig is big enough that if you hold on to the jig, it'll probably fall off. Yep. That one's probably about 4 or 5 pounds. And it's got lots of energy.
Sure does.
Yeah, we don't want to take our gloves off because it's so cold out. Nice
little fish.
Laker. Hey, for my first fish, that's not bad.
Beautiful.
Hooked him right through the top.
Yes.
Can you get it out okay? Just careful when you're handling it. You better get it back in the water real quick here. Just so we don't... Perfect.
Yeah, and there it goes.
Straight to the bottom. Now, you know, we're probably, what, a couple of miles there and offshore here? A mile and a half?
Approximately a mile, mile and a half, yep.
So we're fishing Lake Ontario at the mouth of the Niagara River. There's a shoal here. Is there a name to it or not? I know everybody calls it the bar.
Yeah, everybody usually refers to it as the bar, the sandbar.
And we're using jigs. A lot of guys will be out here and they'll use live bait. If we're using live bait, will we be hooking up fish faster, Aaron?
We'd probably catch a few more fish. Sometimes it really matters, but most of the time you can come out here and use jigs and other various products and catch them on artificials all day long.
Good. Well, we're experimenting with some of the new Storm plastics, and that was one of the large shads.
Oh, they've been really good out here this year.
So, and that fish socked it really well. There was no question. It was on there. Boom.
Yeah, they really nail them.
Yeah. Aaron, how do you know where these fish live out here? Second drift, second fish. This is kind of neat.
Experience.
How many years have you been guiding?
Only a couple.
Wow. One of the things that Aaron and I are doing today is testing some new gear. For example, this rod that I'm using is a Rapala tournament class, and it's a steelhead rod. It's about 9 feet long, and it's rated for line that's between 10 and 20 pound test, so it's medium heavy. And we're seeing how it works when you're using jigs for these lake trout in about 20 to 40 feet of water. And you know what? It works excellent. And you can see I've got a Penn International 965 bait caster rigged on it. And I'm using 12 pound test Rapala tough line. Now, when you're fishing out here, do you like to use the tough line or finesse line? What pound test?
I really like to use the tough line on bait casters.
Right.
And probably about 10 to 12 pound test.
Good.
As a main line.
Good.
Well, that's a nice fish.
Yeah, that water is not that clear. I thought it was crystal clear.
No, there's only about maybe 3 or 4 feet of visibility.
Okay. Are you going to try just grabbing the jig?
Sure, I can do that.
Swing it around. Ah, boy, tons of power in this cold water.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's the end of January, and look at these Lakers. Lake trout are known for living in cold, deep water. But this is ridiculous out here. We've got ice chunks on the surface. Good, he's hooked just in the top of the snout. See if you can hold him up right by the jig head, Aaron, without having your wrist ripped off. Look at the power that fish has.
Unbelievable power.
Nice.
This is a fairly small fish.
Yeah, maybe 7, 8 pounds. Yeah, just be very gentle with it. See if you can slide that jig head out. Perfect. And we'll put it back in the water. Tons of energy, eh? Watch your glove, don't get it too wet. Good release, Aaron.
Way to go.
Now, what we're doing is using a variety of plastics and fishing them close to the bottom. Now, because we've got a bit of a wind that's picked up, we've got to experiment with the size of the jig heads so that you keep hitting the bottom, because one thing here at the mouth of the Niagara, there is quite a current that's dripping out from the river, probably about 4 or 5 miles an hour. Now we've got this wind that's picked up from the west, which wasn't supposed to happen, right?
It wasn't supposed to.
And we're really peeling along here. So I'm going to take my glove off just to...
It's okay. We're adapting.
We're adapting. You know, 2 drifts, 2 fish isn't bad.
I got the fish through the ice, and my uncle held the camera, and I held the fish, and then I just brought the picture back and handed it into Jim.
The Great Lakes are some of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world. Even though most of these lakes have vast areas of cold, open water, they also have thousands of miles of fish-holding shorelines and open water structure. One of these areas is the western end of Lake Ontario, where the Niagara River meets the lake. Italo has chosen to fish this big water with the Misty River 20-foot Viper boat equipped with a Suzuki 115 horsepower 4-stroke outboard and rigged with a Minn Kota 65-pound thrust electric. He used a Vexilar sonar to determine exactly how deep the water is under the boat. Most anglers fishing the western end of Lake Ontario will either charter a boat during the summer months or hire a guiding service who know where the fish are all season long. Aaron Shirley of Shirley Fishing Guide Service out of Burlington, Ontario, provides guided fishing on the lower and upper Niagara River for steelhead, brown trout, lake trout, salmon, walleye, and muskie. If you love to fish and you've stored your boat for the winter, give Aaron a call or check his website and book yourself a winter lake trout trip of a lifetime.
Okay, Aaron, I have the net ready. Take your time. You know, this is kind of challenging with this west wind. We're rocking and rolling. You're trying to feel bottom.
There it is. It's very challenging.
Yes. And these fish are still feeding. It just amazes me. I guess it doesn't matter what the conditions are.
No, they're still feeding all right.
You know what? That's a nice sized lake trout.
It is.
Okay. Now, you hooked them just, you know what?
Very
Your
lightly,
jig
it just fell out.
Just slipped out of its mouth, which is perfect. See if I can get that out for you. There you go. If you can just hold on to that. The trout is kind of laying on your line there. Now what I'm going to do is, again, just try to show you this lake trout. Now you can see how light these colors are on the lake trout. It's probably because they take on the color of the water. The water is like a milky green color, and they really look like a gray trout, which they're called in a lot of places in Canada. What I'm going to try to do is take the net away, and hopefully this guy won't shoot out of my hands real quick. Look at that. You can really appreciate how bright they are. This guy's about, I'd say, 28 or 29 inches long. Beautiful color. He wants to take off, and I'm just going to let him. There he goes.
All right.
Now, you know it's cold because look at this Lucky Strike net. You can see all the ice coming off it here. So,
frozen.
I mean, with the wind chill factor, even though they called for weather of up to -4, when we got here this morning, it was about -20. And this
Sure was.
is making it very challenging. You got to wear gloves. You got to have the full body flotation, personal flotation devices, nice Russian hat to keep us warm.
When it's not really fighting, I should reel, and when it's really fighting, I should let it fight, and then and I keep on doing it, and then I got it. I think it was really hard, because at first I was going to give it to Dad, but Dad said, reel it in, you can do it. And then when I reeled it in, my dad held it because I didn't want to hold it.
You know, when you consider large fish like lake trout that are anywhere from about 5 to 15 pounds, they require pretty big food. So they won't think twice about hitting a bait fish that's 5 or 6 inches long. Now what I'm holding up in my hand is the new Storm Wild Eye swim baits. And this particular one is the 5-inch model. You can see that this one looks like a perch. It's got little stripes down the side, and it has a very reflective material inside the actual bait fish. Now they come up about 3 or 4 in a pack like you see here, and each one has the hook covered with a little plastic tube so it doesn't pierce the package. Now one of the reasons why these work so well, first of all, they're heavy enough to get down 30-40 feet. You can see the lead inside the actual jig, so these are uniquely made. So when a fish grabs it, it doesn't feel any of the lead. Secondly, they have a swimming action tail. It reminds me of the old shads that we used to use for walleye that were 2 or 3 inches long, but this particular one is about 5 inch, and you can see that it looks like a bait fish. Now, because it's a plastic body, sometimes it takes longer to drop because there's more resistance to the water. So if we find that we're into heavy wind conditions and we're fishing deeper water, we'll go to a hair jig. Now, this is the Storm Wild Eye hair jig. And what they've done is the same type of technology. They've taken a lead jig, they've wrapped it, in this case, with bucktail or deer hair, and then they've coated the jig head with the same plastic material like on the bait fish. So they look really real. And of course they have big eyes, which I think is very important, especially when you're dealing with fish like lake trout that can see really well. Hey, hey, hey. You know, you talk about extreme fishing in the middle of winter. I'm out here in Lake Ontario fishing in about 30 feet of water, and I'm using heavy gear like you would in the summertime fishing for pike and muskie, and I'm jigging for lake trout. I know, you're probably going, is that guy in his right mind? It's February and we've got a break in the weather. It's been about -25 for about a week, and we finally got temperatures close to zero. So I'm out here testing some of the new Rapala rods. This is their West Coast steelhead rod, and I've got it rigged with a Penn International 965 high capacity bait casting reel, 12-pound test line, and I'm jigging with a 1 1/4 ounce weight, and I'm fishing right on bottom, trying to go for these lake trout that are out here feeding on bait fish. And you know what? For a first fish, this is a nice laker. I'm trying to control this fish. I'm out here all by myself. I've got about, I'm guessing this is a 10 or 12 pound lake trout, and I'm trying to pull it here into the waves at the same time, go for my Lucky Strike net. Now, you know what? This is going to be very interesting here. I don't know if I can land this guy by myself. He's a brute. I think that big fish is bigger than 12 pounds. Man, look at that head shake. Good fish. Hopefully that hook will stay in it. Oh, talk about stress on my left arm here. Now he's starting to fight. Okay, maybe he's not ready yet. I got to get him closer. You know, this feels like I'm fishing up in the Northwest Territories. Look at that guy trying to head shake and get that jig out of his mouth. This is a pretty hefty rod. It's 9 feet long. But what I'm going to try to do here, because this is a good sized fish, is get him downwind from us here so that the boat blows on top of him. Because by myself, this is very challenging. So I'm going to try to get him up there, head first if I can, into the net. And see if I can keep him in there without him flopping out. Oh man, I don't want to break this net. You know what? I thought that fish was around 12 pounds. That fish is a lot bigger. And if I'm not careful, he's going to go flying out of the boat here. The jig is right in the side of the jaw. See if I can get it out. Now remember, I'm working with gloves here. Come on. Man. Okay, got the teeth in my gloves. Get the line off him. It's got the line underneath his head. You know, this is what happens when you get a big fish by yourself. I wasn't sure if we're going to be able to get out on the lake today, so I'm going to try holding him in the net. And we're actually drifting good here with the current. Now, because the water is so cold, these fish should be fine for revival. So I'm keeping them in the water head first. You can see the ice forming on the rubber net. What I'm going to do here is very carefully extend my body out in a moment here and get his tail out of the net, and he should take off. These are waterproof gloves. So there's the fish, and he's got, you know what, he's got tons of power. Look at this. What a nice 14-pound lake trout for starters. There he goes, gone. You know, it is cold, but if you're dressed properly, it makes all the difference in the world. Now, remember I was talking about the jigs that I'm using? There's a variety of jigs that'll work good for lake trout. I personally like to use plastic bodies on the jigs, like the Storm line. But today, because we have this howling wind, it's probably 50 kilometers an hour, and it's only about 9 o'clock. And we're out here on Lake Ontario. We're probably 2 miles out from shore, fishing in 30 feet of water. If you look right here on the Vexlar, I have it in the normal mode, and I have it on the second scale. What that means is that I take this dial, the outer dial, which shows 15 feet here, and I multiply it by 2. So we're in 30 feet of water. Because I've got this nice dark red signal, that means that it's solid bottom, and I know that I'm here on probably shield material. So those Lakers are coming up out of 60 feet of water onto 30 feet, and they're feeding on large bait fish. Now here's the jig that I'm using because the wind is so strong, and I'm very thankful that I have these heavier jigs. Can you guess what size this one is? I took a permanent marker and I put 1 1/4 on there because I've got 3 different sizes to fish out here in Lake Ontario. My heaviest is 1 1/4 ounce. I have a 1 ounce jig and I have 3/4 ounce jigs. Now these are striper jigs that you'd use if you were fishing for stripers in salt water or in freshwater estuaries, wherever you're fishing for them. And I've got one of Bernard's lock snaps on here, and this is 12-pound test Rapala Tough line. And I've gone with the line that's green in color because the Lake Ontario water is a little green. And I sharpened my hooks last night, and you can see that these jigs have like a banana head. So the reason I want this banana head instead of round, on the rocks here, if I hit bottom, I want to make sure that it's going to ricochet off the bottom like that. So this is a very good head. It drops quick. When it gets to the bottom, instead of wedging in between rocks, it's more likely to actually ricochet off. So it's a very good head to use here. Now I'm going to try fishing this run. We're just over 30 feet. And I'll tell you, this wind is strong and I got to face it. Hopefully my hat won't blow off. So bait casters are ideal for doing this because as my line is going out, when it hits bottom, that spool should slow down a little bit. You can see I've got ice forming on the actual eyelet. There's bottom right there. I'll tell you, this gear is so dependable in this rough water and cold conditions. I wouldn't want to be out here with the spinning outfit because there's too many things that can freeze up. This is awesome. You know, we were getting lake trout out on the lake, then all of a sudden the wind picked up and it got a little unbearable. We started getting coated with ice, so we thought we better head up the river. And we're here in the Niagara River, and you can see there's ice all along the shorelines here. And I did happen to bring some trout eggs with me, just in case the wind would be too bad out on the lake. So we decided to drift fish in about 20 to 30 feet of water. And it's actually quite bearable, even though the wind is still howling. And I just put a spawn sack on, and I've got a fish on, and it looks like it's a silver one. It's not huge, you know, but this is so nice. You can change up from getting a lake trout in deep water and come inside the river and get a beautiful fish on like this in a matter of no time. And you can see I'm working the electric, so it's kind of nice to have the Minn Kota when you have to have boat control. And the Minn Kota model that I'm using is this autopilot in its 65-pound thrust. Now this one is ideal because it doesn't have a lot of gadgets, mechanical parts, so it's very easy to lift up. And while I'm fighting this fish, I'm going to try to explain this to you. I'm actually kneeling on the release mechanism. There's the electric there, and you can see that it slides up and down, so there is nothing that can actually freeze up. So it's very, very good. And this looks like a silver bow. And I just wanted to show you what this ice looks like. Can you tell it's winter time? Look at how silver that rainbow is. Just going to grab the net, and my rubber net is frozen. So let's see if I can get it wet here. You ever hear a fish on ice? Look at this. Fish with ice. Got her in there. Now, this is a small female. You know what? This fish is nice and cool, and it's heavier because of that. And I'm going to put it right on the seat here. You can see, this is cute. I've never landed a fish on ice. You know, if you wanted some fish for eating, you could keep them chilled. You can see it's hooked very lightly, just in the roof of the mouth. And because I've got neoprene gloves on, I should be able to get that mouth open there and pop the hook out. Come on. It's actually slipping. I'm going to have to take my glove off. Stay right there, little rainbow. You gotta take your time doing this stuff. Okay, there's my neoprene glove off. Now I've got my hand to work with. Pull the hook out. It's over the side. Now, isn't that a cute rainbow? That fish almost looks like the kind you get in a market, you know, when they have them on ice like this. But that's a female. It's about 2.5 pounds. Very bright fish. So it just came out of the lake. So what I'm going to do is get it back in the water with all of the ice, and it should be fine. It's just playing sleeper right now because I didn't really fight it out that long. Come on. Look at this. And get it the right way here. Watch it disappear. Look at that, underneath the ice. You know, this is the close you can get to ice fishing. Now, even though it looks like we're not moving, see this ice? Look at how fast we're moving down the shoreline. Now, you do have to use your common sense when you're fishing out here in the wintertime. I don't prefer to be in these ice packs. This ice isn't really dangerous because it's small. I've been out here when you get large chunks of ice. But you know what? It doesn't matter how cold the water is. These fish are very active all winter long. And remember, the steelhead are winter spawning steelhead. So they're in the river all winter long. Excellent sport. So I'm just going to get back out, put a fresh spawn sack on, and see if I can get another fish. You know, when you're on the water boating, it doesn't matter whether you're traveling at a high speed or at a slow speed. There are certain rules that you have to abide by. For example, here I am ready to pull my boat out of the water, and I want to get to that dock that's right there. One very important rule when you're dealing with moving water like this, whether it's in the wintertime or summertime, is that you approach your dock or another boat traveling into the current. You don't go with the current because you can't control the speed that you're going to be traveling at, and you could damage the boat, or you know, the boat could capsize if you're in a small boat. So when you're approaching especially a dock and you're in a current situation like a river, and you can see here we've got chunks of ice floating by in the current, I'm going at a very slow speed, so throttle control is very important, and I'm going to inch my way into the current up to the dock. If you do that when you're in the current, you're going to be a safe boater. You know, if you want to get more information on boating and water safety, you should contact the Canadian Power and Sail Squadrons. You can do that by contacting them directly, or you can go to our website, www.canadian-sportfishing.com, and you'll get all the information that has to do with safe boating and boat rules.
Canadian Sport Fishing has been brought to you in part by Ford Trucks, built Ford tough. Lucky Strike, producers of quality fishing tackle and landing nets since 1929. Rapala, premium fishing gear, crafted from experience. Canadian Power and Sail Squadrons, volunteers teaching safe boating.